Right. Hello, welcome to the Res Session stage. This is all about getting started in games journalism. I am your host, John Hicks. I was a games journalist for many years. I used to work at Gamer Network, who run this show, and we run a bunch of websites, Eurogamer, VG247, US Gamer, that kind of thing. I did a lot of hiring and recruiting and finding fresh new writers as part of that, so I have a few thoughts about that, and I'm joined by a panel of games journalists to kind of varying degrees of experience, from sort of brand new start of their career to a veteran Matt on the end there, which is I didn't want to say these are the start of their career and you're at the But so just to introduce them, so there's Emma Kent, who is the current reporter intern on Eurogamer, Vic Hood, who is games reporter on Tech Radar, Chris Tapsell, who is guides writer on Eurogamer, and Matt Martin, who's the editor-in-chief of VG247. And we're going to have a bit of chat about kind of how they started in the industry, what advice they would give to anyone else who wants to follow suit. So to begin with, I thought we could just kind of do a very brief kind of origin story to let you know where we all came from. For me, I started in print magazines a very, very long time ago, if you remember print magazines, and kind of worked my way up from there. And you know, I kind of don't really want to go massively deep on that, because I don't think kind of working in print is really something people are like aim for anymore. How about you, Emma?
Yeah, no, I started for my university newspaper called Red Brick about a year ago. I was the editor along with a few other people for the paper, and I got a lot of experience going to shows and writing a variety of different features and news pieces. And then early this year, I came to the Res session on how to get into games journalism, and I asked a difficult question and wrote it up into a feature piece and tagged everyone from Eurogamer in it. And then, applied for the internship with my portfolio and got that. And I started that 3 months ago. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind year.
So I previously was the reporter intern that Emma was. Yeah, okay. So I was in a journalism course, a street journalism course, and near the end of it, I decided I was writing about games in my spare time for free websites, and decided I wanted to try and make a living out of it. So I applied for the Eurogamer internship, got that, stayed 3 months there, and then another 2 months kind of as a full-time reporter afterwards. Then went into freelance, then went to PC Games then went freelance again, and then now I'm the gaming writer at Tech Radar, and it's been a year.
Hello. So mine was relatively straightforward. I worked for a tiny little site for just over a year for free. And basically just to build up a portfolio, get some experience, go to some events, get the odd press pass, and do the odd interview, that sort of thing, and have some practice working sort of for an editor and what that experience is like. And then the guides writer job came up at Eurogamer, and I was just keeping tabs on jobs in the industry after I sort of felt like I was ready to apply, and went for that. It's a simple interview process. Did a writing test, and I've been here for 2 years since. That's pretty much it.
Hello. So I didn't consider that you could get paid for writing about video games. I've been doing it for 18 years now, so I've realised you can. I was a struggling music journalist, and I wasn't really making any money, and I saw an ad for a full-time writing job on a games magazine, on a PS2 magazine. I didn't have a PlayStation or anything like that, so I borrowed a PlayStation, played some games, and wrote some reviews and pitched them in for the actual job application, and got the job as a basic staff writer, which is like entry-level position, kind of. It's kind of one of the first jobs you do, I guess. And I've worked from there, worked my way up really. I was a staff writer, then I made my way up to an editor. I launched a few magazines, and then I started working online because that was much more important. And I just worked my way up and to here now, like 18 years ago. So yeah.
I should say that was a similar experience for me when I started. I just wanted to write, and similar thing. There was a job going on the official Windows XP magazine, and I thought, because I applied for a few jobs, didn't get an interview, and I saw Windows XP magazine. I thought that sounds really dull. I bet there's no competition for that. Which I was wrong about, but I got the job anyway. And even though I'd never used Windows XP, I had to sort of like blag my way through that. But yes, so kind of I think that the panel very much supports the kind of starting at the bottom and working your way up. In terms of when you kind of sort of went out for these jobs and kind of started applying for them, like was there any kind of particular prep you did to kind of to sort of build your portfolio? Obviously, you were on Red Brick. Chris was contributing to a website. Did you kind of start from the position of you had to kind of like build your own footprint and then have something to apply with, or did you kind of apply for some jobs and get bounced and then realise you have to build something, or what was the sort of thought process behind it?
Well, I really just kind of started writing for fun for the paper, so it wasn't really an intentional decision to build up a portfolio, but it ended up going that way. And during my final year of university, I thought, actually, this would be great to do full-time. This is what I would love to do. And the best thing about writing for the university newspaper is there's not a huge amount of pressure on exactly what you have to do, so you can try a range of things. And you can go to events and chat to indie devs. That's a great way to kind of get some access on different stories that might be good. And I think as well, there's a kind of perception that if you're not with a bigger site, you can't get to the news first. But you just have to kind of keep an eye on social media and what's going on in game communities. Because it's quite easy to find different takes and different projects that might be interesting to report on. So that's quite a good way to practice news writing.
So mine was, I sort of intentionally started with this smaller site to build up a portfolio. I didn't go straight into just, I'm going to apply for like an entry-level job or a mid-level job, as some people do, with zero experience straight out of university. I'd finished uni. I was still sort of deciding what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to go into film at one point, and I was sort of trying that. I was working part-time just to sort of keep myself going while living at home with parents, which I appreciate not everyone can do, and that was another thing that helped. Just fortunately, as a part of journalism, a lot of the way that people get into it is through that. So I was able to work for free at this site, and I have mixed feelings about doing that. But the positive is that it gave me a very big back catalogue of work. I was writing probably 2 articles a day, on average, doing features. I did a really wide range of stuff. I covered like League of Legends World Championships, writing up game results, writing up like interesting plays of the game, why things are interesting, doing explainers and stuff like that. That was a bit different. I did some guide stuff, I did some tips, I did a couple of reviews. The great stuff is that you do get access like that. So I got codes out for like Call of Duty, and I think it was Star Wars Battlefront, the first rebooted one. And Rainbow Six Siege when that first came out. So great experiences, reviewing games like that. And I went to a couple of preview events. Went to an Overwatch preview event, which was great, and a Godzilla PS4 preview event, which was brilliant. But a great experience because it allows you to. You have to be able to talk to someone who is making a game or working on a game or the PR for the game or something like that, who knows that their game isn't very good. And you know their game isn't very good, and you have to be able to have a conversation about the game when they go, "What do you think?" And go, "Yeah, it's fine." But there's a way to navigate those situations, and there's a way you learn those people skills from getting out and about in the world and doing that sort of thing. So that's why that was really important, and that's why I feel quite glad about my decision to do that. And then. Yeah, I was lucky that Eurogamer was the first thing that I applied to, and I ended up working here. So, I would strongly advise doing that, but there are different ways to do it, and the thing about working for free is that not everyone can. So I wouldn't say just the way to get into video games journalism is go and work for free for a year. What I would say is the way to get into video games journalism is to do video games journalism, and that is to write something. You can't apply for something and say, hire me as a writer, if you have no evidence of the fact that you can write. Or as a producer or a video maker or a content creator or a social media manager, if you have absolutely no visible experience, it's very rare that you're going to get hired, even in an entry-level job. So you have to just navigate that awkward balance between not kind of exploiting yourself or overworking yourself, and doing a bit of extra work and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and just doing something to show that you're capable of doing it. And then if you can get yourself in front of someone for an interview, you can impress them and you can talk to them and you can explain your situation and so on. And then it comes down to you as a person as much as it does your ability to write, because there are loads of people with like a handful of articles. So that's what I would say. Don't think that it's just like, okay, I'm going to go work for free for a year. Just have something to show for yourself. That's how I'd say is try and get started.
And I guess, well, for Matt, I guess you're in that position where you're the one doing the recruiting, right? So when you're, is that, do you kind of agree with that when you're kind of looking for people to hire?
Yeah, I would say get a really varied portfolio. There's some things just don't do. Like, don't send us opinion pieces. Like, it's the internet, everyone's got an opinion. Don't need to hear another one. You need to do things that's going to make you stand out. So interviews are always good. Deeper interviews where you're not just interviewing one person, but interviewing multiple people into the same piece, and there's a theme that runs through it. Don't send us news stories. Don't send us reviews. Anyone can review a game. So yeah, you need that really, like, have a varied portfolio of work with some different ideas and like a deep knowledge, like demonstrated deep knowledge, even if it's just on one game or one genre or one thing or one, gaming mechanic, but like demonstrate that you really understand that thing and you're the voice for that thing, Even some of the most obvious things, like it might be a massive game, it might be World of Warcraft, but show us that you're an expert in World of Warcraft, and that makes you like really valuable, basically, because you understand something, you're embedded in the community, like, have that extra knowledge, like that really deep knowledge is my kind of general advice.
And I think talking about the different types of writing is something that I think people don't tend to think about when they're kind of planning their career. So obviously Chris is a guides writer on Eurogamer. VG247 does a lot of guides, and that's something I know when I've been looking at kind of job applications and things. Everybody wants to be like a features writer, right? Or some people want to be news writers. And it's intensely competitive, and those things are quite hard to do, and they're quite hard to do well. But things like guides content or how-to stuff, or the more practical side of things, like every word on a given games website or in a magazine was written by someone, and it's worth thinking about the different things you can do. Like, it doesn't have to be features writing. If you rock up and say, actually, I know a video game, like this game or this genre inside out, and you can talk about that with confidence, that's really valuable. That's something absolutely worth thinking about. I mean, do you have, Chris particularly, do you have any particular sort of insight on that?
Yeah, I think that Jonty makes a great point, is that a lot of people don't think about just the differences in the actual mechanics of writing between one type of article and another. I think that, with kind of rise of video and that kind of thing, like, people's attentions are quite split, and so you don't really necessarily always focus down on the depth of a skill like writing and the amount of kind of technique it requires to do different types of writing. So that's something that can set you apart, is if you understand the difference of the mechanics of writing different types of articles. There's a difference between two types of feature, let alone the difference between a feature and a news article. There's a difference between different types of news articles. So you might be doing original reporting is kind of the term for it, which is something that we try to do as much as possible on a Eurogamer. Emma's done a lot of it. Likewise Vic when she was there. And that is kind of investigative stuff, and it is using sources, it is using your contacts in the industry, it is going out and about into the real world, talking to people over the phone, picking up the phone and calling people, sending people emails, sending follow-up emails, digging into subreddits, that kind of thing. That's one type of reporting, and it normally forms like a long-form feature and so on. Or there is, like, we've got a press release, we didn't hear about it in advance, it's 3 p.m, everyone in the games industry has just got a 3 p.m. press release, write it up in 5 minutes or less, basically, and get it out there, or stuff in between. So in every discipline there is a kind of sub-discipline, and there's stuff that you should learn about. So that's what I would say, is figure out which type of things you enjoy and really practice it, really study it. What type of article is this that I'm reading? Why is it written in this way and that way? Why are there opinions in this article and not in that article, and so on? But with guides in particular, I know my editor, Matt, if you're watching, hi Matt, definitely wanted me to talk about this, and it's really important, is guides writing is a very specific skill, and I didn't realise this going into it, how specific it was. It's not just being good at explaining stuff and writing a guide that is useful. It's also SEO, which is the ability to get your guide in front of people ahead of other people's guides. It's search engine optimization, which sounds really boring. Sometimes it is boring. Sometimes it's actually really fun. And it is very, very competitive, as in you are competing with everyone. I'm competing with Matt and writers at VG. I'm competing with Vic and writers at TechRadar. I'm competing with Polygon and IGN and all sorts of people, US Gamer and everyone, and videos as well, to get our article in the #1 spot on Google when you type in how to get the Master Sword in Zelda, or how to do a Woken trial in Destiny 2, or whatever. And it takes all kinds of skills that you can only really learn by doing the job. So I don't know where I'm necessarily going with this, but basically, try to be aware of the different type of disciplines that there are, and it's quite fun to sink your teeth into it, and be open to different disciplines and kind of relish them for what they are. Because what I love about guides is they do great traffic numbers, so there's a lot of satisfaction when you see a ton of people reading something that you wrote. They are very competitive, which I definitely have a competitive streak, which I love. And it can be quite intense. It's the most gameplay involved of any of the disciplines, so I play games probably 50% of the time for my job, which is great. I'm normally finished a game before it's come out. Sometimes, there's probably about 10 people on the planet who have played a game by the time you finished it, which is really cool if you're really into games, But also, you play games in a very different way. If I was reviewing something, I've done a few reviews at Eurogamer, very, very different to playing it for a guide. So lots of ups and downs to it, but think about that. Think about getting in different ways, because it's got me in the door, and now I write news articles now and then, I write features now and then, I do reviews now and again, and you see your name next to a review on Eurogamer.net and go, holy shit. So I would recommend it, and just be open-minded.
And Vic, particularly because you did a journalism qualification and sort of studied it, is that something that has been sort of really, you found that very useful in video games? Is that something that you'd recommend?
100%. So it was, because the actual kind of course I did was straight traditional journalism. Everyone went into kind of newspapers and BBC and stuff, and that was kind of the route I was heading down. And on the side, to build my portfolio, I was writing about games just for me, I guess. And then when it got to near the end, at that point where you have to be like, what am I going to do in my life? I got to that point, was like, well, I write about games, I enjoy this, I'm going to give myself until my student halls runs out and I have to have the money to pay rent to try and do this. So I threw everything into it. And by that point, because of the course I was doing, I already had a portfolio of news and features that weren't about video games. They were just about everything. So it was a wide range from like tech, covering culture stuff, to straight news, like all this just completely different things. And then I had a separate kind of video games, mental health related stuff that I was doing on the side for me. So when it came to making a portfolio, I threw everything into, I am a games writer, but my range is, I'm adaptable. I really enjoy writing about games, and this is where my passion is. But I have a kind of solid background in news and journalism. That's where my strength is. So put me wherever, and I will do the thing. So I think that helped when I went into the reporter role, like the internship, because I knew that stuff, but I didn't know games, like as an industry. It's a completely different industry to straight kind of traditional journalism, and that was a whole new thing to get my head around. And I also did some work experience with the Daily Star just to get some actual game stuff on there that was on a big website rather than just for free. So when I think I pitched stuff on CVs and stuff, it wasn't just games, it was games and I think it was film and some other, like a complete wide range of different things that I could do. And it really helps me now because I'm a gaming writer, but I'm at a tech website. So I do games 90% of the time, but in that small 10% when we're overrun, I'm doing tech, and I just lift those skills that I have in games and apply it to the same structure and things about writing tech, which I think is a good one to have wherever you're going, because as Chris said, it's nice if you can get a foot in somewhere, then you can grow from there. But whatever you're doing, your best to just be adaptable. Don't go in thinking you're going to be a features writer or you're going to be whatever and just that. If you can change to whatever, then it'll put you in really good stead for future jobs or just for proving to a company that you're a completely all-rounder that can do whatever they need you to do.
Yeah. And Emma, as the sort of the newest arrival on the games journalism scene, like so you've been doing it for a few months. Like, what were the sort of the surprises? What were the kind of the things that you've learned most recently that you think people should know about, kind of going in? Were there any surprises? Has it all been very as expected?
I mean, I've been surprised by the pure variety and range of what I've been doing. I guess with reporting it, you've got to realise that you're going to cover games that you're not familiar with, and you've got to be able to research context very quickly. And you know that people are going to be reading it who are experts on the game. So you've got to be really nitpicky about what you write. So I've covered things like MOBAs. I'm like, I've no idea how on earth I would even start, but I got there through hard work and research, and it's doable, and you pick up experience as you go along. I think I was surprised by how difficult it is sometimes in interviews with PRs, because they really don't want you to learn anything that might be negative about the game, and often when you do an interview, for instance at Gamescom, they will have a PR there with the developer, and you've got to try and phrase questions in a way that's not going to freak them out and try and coax things through. And so you can't be too direct. I've had a couple of interviews that have been challenging, but it's always a learning experience, and I think it came out okay. Yeah.
There is absolutely an art to interviewing AAA people, because they've literally spent like days in a locked room being programmed not to answer the questions that you're going to ask, and that's there is a skill to kind of getting them to say anything interesting. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there are indie developers who will tell you absolutely anything about their lives and their game, and you have to try and sort of pick out the interesting threads in that. And I think that's something you can do, particularly at a show like EGX. We have all these people on the show floor. If you're trying to build a portfolio, you're trying to do reporting, it's something that you can start doing that stuff here with your own site, or if you're kind of contributing to something. I think we're talking a lot about writing though, and obviously that's only one strand of the modern kind of media mix. Big, lots of video presence, lots of YouTubers covering games very, very successfully now. Is that something that you guys kind of considered at any point in your application process, or were you like words all the way?
Again, because my course was, I did broadcast journalism originally at college, so I did radio and video, and then I went to university, and again it was writing, radio and video, and TV is not my thing. I can still, but it doesn't mean that if you don't want to be in front of a camera, you can still be involved in video. So I did freelance stuff for IGN for a while, and I was writing the video scripts for the news that you were writing. So you can still use those skills that maybe if you don't want to necessarily do video, then you can still use the skills in like script writing and things like that, which was helpful for me. But yeah, I think I'm one of those people that don't like to be in front of the camera. But I think like Matt does the podcast with you guys, right? With Matt Reynolds, and which again, it's just going from writing into a different kind of broadcast.
Yeah, for sure. So my experience of video and that sort of thing, to circle back to the question, was when I was working for that little site, I was sort of pretty much forced into doing some video stuff, which I wasn't really a fan of. Thankfully, not putting my face on anything, but just doing voiceover work. And I think it was like, they'd seen that FIFA Ultimate Team of the Week stuff was really popular on YouTube, and they were like, we want to do that because it's really popular. And I was a little bit skeptical because it's not really how it works, where you just open some packs and talk about the team and suddenly get hundreds of thousands of views. But anyway, I did a few of those for a while, and it was a regular weekly thing, and I learned how to edit voiceover, how to take the ums and ahs and the mouth breathing and all kinds of horrible noises that you make when you're snorting into a mic as an awful games journalist, and you're not used to working on video. I learned how to do stuff like that just by self-teaching and sitting under a blanket recording voiceover and stuff like that. And I learned that I didn't really enjoy it that much. And that is as valuable an experience as it is doing something that you do enjoy. So it forced me out of my comfort zone. I did it for a long enough time to be certain about how I feel about it. And that kind of allowed me to refocus my attention on writing, really. I've done one podcast with Matt recently. We just restarted it, which I quite enjoyed. Yeah, I think that naturally, like Vic was saying, skills do cross over, and if you have decent kind of interpersonal skills, then you'll find yourself all right on a podcast or something conversational. It's down to you. It's down to what you want to specialise in, basically.
So, this is kind of question for everybody, so I guess we'll start with Matt. But what sort of misconceptions do you see with people trying to get started in the industry? Is there anything that kind of there's sort of mistakes people make that you want to tell the audience not to do?
No, I think the main thing is know who if you're trying to pitch for freelance work, for example, know who you're pitching to, because we all write about video games, but we're all different websites and we all work differently and we all actually cover games differently. And there's some games that we don't do that you guys do, and some games you guys wouldn't touch and we do. So it's just kind of know who you're pitching to and make sure you understand that site and what they do. We're mainly focused on guides and features and news. So, and there's only there's a set of maybe 20 games that we cover in depth. So don't pitch as small indie games or mobile games or a game that you played that you think is good. And we don't do retro stuff, so don't pitch as any retro stuff. But pitch retro stuff to Eurogamer because they do great retro stuff on the weekends. So it's just understand who you're pitching to. So you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting their time, and you'll actually get a proper response. You don't have to pitch to everyone either.
Yeah. Read the website that you're going to pitch to. For the love of God. Know what the website is and what they like and how they write, because there's different writing styles as well. The writing style on VG is really punchy, and you can get away with swearing. You can get away with kind of having a bit of an attitude about it, which I really like about it. I say this in a good way, by the way.
Thank you.
Whereas Eurogamer, you have to have a slightly different angle about it. Sometimes a certain article requires a certain tone. Sometimes you can do something lighthearted, you may or may not know that on Eurogamer on Fridays, we tend to relax our tone a little bit. We normally do more silly stories that came up on Monday or Tuesday that aren't urgent, but are a bit of fun. So we'll publish it on a Friday. And our audience, over time starts to learn that that's kind of what to expect on a Friday. They don't complain about why you're writing about Birdo or something on a Friday. And we do long-form features on weekends and so on. So you get familiar with the sites and get to know them, get to know the personality, think about what the writers are like at the site and that kind of thing. Because it makes it, GI, gamesindustry.biz, very, very different publication to Eurogamer, and so I could go on forever and so on.
Yeah, don't email me asking how Games Radar is. It's a good one. Or start an email with, "Hello, sir," is another one.
Please don't do that.
Those are the ones that immediately don't help. I think to kind of go back onto what Matt said earlier, opinion pieces are usually something that if they come into me, I very rarely will commission them. Mainly unless there's an angle on it, and a lot of people really want to do opinion pieces, and a lot of the times I'll be, here's 5 things I want to see in this game. I'm like, well, why does anyone care what you want to see in that game? Anyone could tell me that. What is your angle? What makes this special? That is why anyone cares about what you want to see in this. And that's a big one. Another one is don't thinking you're going to go into games journalism and just play games all the time. That is, in my spare time, I get very little time to play games. Like, it's not about that, and not everything, depending what you're doing, not everything's going to be just getting to play games and hang out and do the really cool stuff, because it's hard work and it's a grind and it's competitive, and you have to constantly be on your best, kind of at the top of your game, no pun intended. Like, I think that's the important part, and you need to kind of realize, again, what website you're pitching to, what do they do, what is their tone, and kind of adjust to that. Just don't call the website the wrong name, and don't be, if you get feedback or something that says that what you've pitched isn't good, as long as they're not being horrible to you, don't be horrible back. So don't immediately argue and start going, well, actually, I think that you're wrong. My idea was really good. So that kind of thing is immediately into the blacklist. If you're not going to appreciate your feedback, then that's it. And yeah, I've literally been commissioning 3 weeks, and these are the things that I've been getting in, and it's a yes and no. Just make sure as well, if you're kind of, sometimes if you're pitching, try and not just come with one idea, come with a few, come with a range, and let people know that you aren't just like a one-trick pony. Here's the different ideas I have, here's them really well laid out, here's why you want me, and why you should take a risk on me. And that kind of thing, I think, is really important. Don't call us Game Radar.
What I would quickly say with that as well is that pitching is its own discipline, and that we could do a whole talk just on how to pitch a freelance article. And it's really, you can probably split games journalism down the middle between full-time work and freelance work. And you have to have not necessarily a different set of skills, but you have to understand the differences between those two disciplines, and the drastic difference in lifestyle between the two. You'll have a very different experience as a freelance writer compared to being a full-time writer. I can quickly talk about that a bit. I don't want to diverge too much, but what I would say is that freelance comes with less stability, and if you're ill or you break your arm and you can't type anymore, or that there's a problem with the family, or you go on holiday, you don't get paid for that. You get paid when you submit that you've been commissioned for. So you have to understand that that comes with the job. You write for a lot of different publications. You normally work from home, so you don't have as much contact with people. So you have to be okay working on your own and being a self-starter and working out of a bedroom. And sometimes that's hard. I've tried working from home before I got into this. It's hard work. At the same time, you have more freedom. You tend to write flashier articles that get more attention. It's more feature stuff, more long-form stuff, more reviews, that kind of thing. There is news cover and there is guide stuff, but it's less frequent. So there are definitely positives to freelancing, absolutely. And a lot of the best writers that I know are freelancers. With full-time, you have more stability, and you have kind of like a bit of a direction you can grow into. You have a ladder, you have a support system, and so on. But it's much, much harder to get into, because you could probably fit all of the games journalists in the UK into this room. In fact, you could easily fit all the games journalists in the UK into this room. So there aren't that many opportunities for you to become a full-time writer, at least not straight away. So often you'll find that you have to start in freelance, and that's what I was expecting to do if I didn't get in at Eurogamer. I decided I wanted to start asking for money for my work, but I didn't go, okay, well, I'll just go get a job at Eurogamer now, and that's it. So yeah, be prepared to sort of maybe freelance first for a bit and get your name out there, get 1 or 2 articles, maybe get one in Eurogamer, one on Rock, Paper, Shotgun, and you do a bit of news cover at IGN for a bit, and then some people know your name, and then a full-time position comes up, and you go into that having a leg up on the competition because they know who you are, they know you submit your things on time, they know that you are polite via email, they know you're not a bit weird, which helps. Yeah, so basically understand that there are differences there, and that's very much something you need to be aware of when you come into it.
So this is my last question, and I'm going to throw it open to the audience if you have any questions for the panel. Get some good ones. See, like Emma got a job out of asking at the panel last time. So, so the kind of parting shot is actually just for kind of like if you can give like a single like practical tip to the audience here. It's about getting started in games journalism. Like, what's the thing to kind of go away and do right now? What's your kind of number one tip to a wannabe journalist?
Yeah, I guess just practice and write as wide a variety of articles as you can. we haven't really talked so much about networking and going to events and meeting people. Chris and I were having a discussion earlier about when you go to these events, make sure to realise that the people who are there are also wanting to have a nice time. So don't just spend the whole time talking about yourself. Just go have a nice conversation about games, like maybe ask a few questions about how to get into the industry. But don't feel like you've got to give an elevator pitch to everyone you meet at the networking event. Oh, and also get involved on Twitter as well, because there's definitely a bubble of games journalists, and you'll hear things first through there, and you'll get an idea of what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, so I'd say if it's like something to go do now, if you're here in terms of work, go out there, have a look, especially indie games, left field, do that stuff, talk to those developers. If you have a card, give them your card and start thinking about the niche kind of things that you can pick up while you're here, and start churning those pitches in your head about the weird stuff that you can come up with that you could potentially pitch to someone that's not here. So none of us probably, but like things like that where you're looking for the weird, you're looking for something a bit different that maybe the other places haven't got time to cover because they're covering the AAAs. Start doing that kind of thing, getting the developers to know. And like Emma said, Twitter is going to be like your best friend. Network, keep kicking down the door until people start realizing who you are, recognize your name appearing on stuff, sharing your articles, and then we do start to notice certain names appearing again and again. I know I certainly start to see names appearing, and if you want to network, I'm going to quickly plug the fact that I do an event called Recharge, and it's for communities and mainly for freelancers
It's
to
really
network
good
with other
event.
people. Yeah, and we do that, and we have a Facebook page and a Twitter page and things like that, so do that if you want to meet people.
Yeah, that's great. That's a perfect example of stuff you should go to. Stuff like this and stuff like the industry parties or the party in the evening or whatever else. I don't necessarily have like a specific piece of advice that is one thing that you could do, because like anything when you're trying to get into it, it's more of a broad plan of attack as opposed to I've ticked this one box and therefore I should have a job. So I would say what I'll try and do is give you a plan of attack. Because I'm a guide writer and that's what I do, is like patronisingly explain things to people for a living. So one is learn how to write. You can't be a writer unless you can write. The job is being a writer, not a video games player, even if your job is a DOS like mine and you just play stuff for guides. It's not a DOS. So learn how to write, practice. It can be for free for a website, it can be for your blog, it can be whatever for a uni magazine, anything like that. Get experience writing. Two is network. Talk to people, be polite, be respectful, respect boundaries when you're networking. You're not going to be instantly be everyone's best friend, but you might make some friends while you're there, and understand that. Understand the difference between, someone that you met professionally at a networking event and someone who is your new best friend or someone who wants to go on a date with you. I hate that I have to say that, but some people need to hear that, and that's fine. Then I would say get involved in Twitter. Again, respect boundaries. Don't reply to every single post and like and retweet every single post that one writer does. That's a bit weird. But get involved in conversations. Just join into the chat and ask questions. I'm amazed that more people don't ask for advice via Twitter. We're right there. Twitter is amazing. You can, if you want to talk to a scientist, you can just look up a scientist on Twitter and just send them a question, and they'll probably reply because they're like, "Oh my God, someone knows who I am." And it's exactly the same as game journalists. If you want to ask someone a question, myself, if I'm a guys writer, or Matt, sorry Matt, you know those questions now, or anyone who's in the industry, find someone who you admire and say, "Listen, I really like how you write. Do you have any tips for how you got into that, or anything, something specific even?" And then when you feel confident in your ability, start pitching stuff. Start pitching freelance articles. You should have, in a freelance pitch, you should be polite, you should be to the point. You could put a quick joke in there, reference, acknowledge the website in some way, understand why what you're writing is good for the website, introduce yourself politely, even make a note of the fact that you're just starting out and just saying, if you have any feedback, if this doesn't suit you, then great. You should have either links to sites, to articles that you've published before, or if you haven't had it published, you should submit 3 writing samples. Just links to Word documents or Google documents of just an article, attach it as well, and then you're like, "Oh, sorry if you don't like opening attachments, here's a link to the article as well." Just be considerate, so people know if you're right for their site or not. Explain the idea, the suggested headline, accept feedback, because often they'll be like, "This is actually a good idea, but your angle is terrible." We'd rather you wrote it like this. And don't be like, no, and because you're precious over it, go, okay, that's interesting, just accept it. Do what you need to do is get your article published. You will publish thousands of articles, so don't be precious over like your one idea. You should have loads of ideas stored up and ready to go. And then keep it, oh, sorry.
Yeah. So we're going to let Matt get a word in edgeways.
Very quickly, keep an eye on jobs as well, and then apply to them as they come up. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah, so to move it on a little bit from Chris, when you do actually get a commission or you do get a piece of work that you're going to do and a website is going to pay for you to do, make sure you stick to the deadline. Make sure you turn in the work that you're asked to turn in. So don't send a great pitch that you're going to interview these 3, 4, 5 people, and then a week later deliver something that only interviews one of them. Try and secure those kind of interviews before you actually pitch as well. If you can say, I've got these guys all agreeing to talk to me for an interview, for a feature, here's the feature idea, that's so much better than going, I'd like to speak to the guy from Naughty Dog. You know, it's like, well, yeah, I would as well, but, you know, we've got to get hold of him first. So try and do as much work as you can beforehand. And just make sure that you hitting the deadline is probably the most important thing that I learned. I didn't learn that in games. I learned that working in other magazines. Like, you know, I wrote, just stick to deadlines, right? Make sure you deliver when you say you're going to deliver and deliver what you're going to deliver.
Okay. So that was the final question from me. Does anybody have any questions from the audience?
Hey, thanks for that. What do you think of the health of the video game journalism industry? Like, you know, you for instance spoke about how, like, talking about magazines, you just weren't going to do it because it's nearly done. Like, what do you know, with the advent of Twitch and YouTube and blah, 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 like, how do you think it's looking out there?
It's looking like it's expanding, I think. Like in a good way. Like, you know, websites close down because they don't keep up. And they don't change the way they work. Like our webs, like VG247 has been around for 10 years, and we're a completely different site to what we were 10 years ago. And we had to do that, otherwise, you know, we went through a bleak period 3 or 4 years ago when, you know, it was looking like that. Do you know what I mean? So we needed to turn it around, and I think we did. I think we started working with YouTubers more closely and things like that. We started focusing on guides and things that we hadn't done before. So yeah, I think that it's pretty healthy. You know, like there's games journalism, and then there's YouTubers, which is completely different. Actually, a different audience to traditional games journalism. I think Twitch is a different audience. I think kind of, you know, esports as entertainment is a different audience. There seems to be like lots of different audiences for different types of games. Media, I guess, is a catch-all, I suppose.
There's kind of a whole different world as well behind the scenes that people very understandably aren't that familiar with, of just digital publishing in general and how that works. And there are so many places where you can kind of publish your work now. And I don't just mean that I can publish something on Eurogamer, but people can find that through so many different ways. They can find that through Google and quality SEO. They can find that through I don't know, like a reader or something like that. They can find that through the Steam newsfeed. They can find that through Reddit. They can find it through someone referencing an article that we wrote in their YouTube video, or through AMP, or through Facebook articles, or through Google articles, or whatever. So that environment is its own beast, and it's constantly evolving. And the sites that are able to adapt to that, like Matt says, actually thrive and are expanding. And like he says, a lot of websites are growing, and growing really quickly. It's just that some people are slightly stuck in the past, or that maybe they came from print or something like that, and so they just have a different understanding of how things should be built.
And I would say on print, I mean, I'm just being rude about print. There are still games magazines going. It is a great advantage to working on a games magazine is that there's a system and there is a process, and you get that magazine out every 3 weeks, and that is a hard deadline, and that you have to ship it. And there is a team, there is a process, and that's something you don't really get online. Like online's a bit more of a sort of people just can sort of chuck things out as they happen, breaking news, that kind of stuff. Magazines are really valuable for sort of instilling a sense of process and procedure, and you are supported by the rest of the magazine team. So I don't want to say that it's a total busted flush, but there is. I worked in print for a very long time, and you look at, and that was the consistently you reached a slightly smaller audience every single year. So you kind of have to take that compromise. Did you guys have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would still kind of emphasize that the games industry is still a pretty new industry, and we are still essentially near the start of something that's getting bigger and bigger, and how we adapt to that and how we change, like the guy said, is we have to ride that wave and see what people want. And right now people are looking up to things, people like streamers, and YouTube is becoming bigger in terms of games and that kind of thing, and we are serving the readers and we are serving the audience, and it's kind of up to us to ride that wave and to see what they want and make content that is what people are looking for right now. So I don't think the games industry is going anywhere anytime soon, except probably up, because it's still so early, and nothing kind of is indicating that it's going to slow down anytime soon.
So, another question at the back?
Hi there, Imogen Meller, write for Red Brick. Hi Emma, nice to see you. My question is sort of on risky articles. As someone who is both a woman and is of color, gaming is not like where I look at, like people are like, oh hi, and I'm like, hi. Yeah, I don't look exactly like the general audience. And things I've been really interested in are sort of like the Battlefield appearance of a woman on the cover. That was hugely controversial. But what I find is that, like, as a smaller publication, I don't want to touch that. I don't want the backlash. I don't want people coming to me and being like, you're wrong, look why you're wrong. And like it's appeared a lot, like I've wanted to write about black characters or black journalists or stuff like that, and that just doesn't appear. I just don't see it. But at the same time, is it worth going and like writing about something like that when the backlash or like the repercussions could be so massive?
I think that I 100% get where you're coming from, because there's a lot of people that have come to me saying something similar, and they're like, can I do this anonymously? But that defeats the point of me doing this. But also, like, I know what I'm gearing myself up for, which is hell. I think the games industry, in terms of community, can be the absolute best, and they can be the absolute fucking worst. And unfortunately, at the minute, any sort of kind of either gender or ethnic minorities are currently having to kind of, annoyingly, people are having to grow a thicker skin, and it's a pain in the ass, and it shouldn't be the way it is. But I think that sometimes it's a personal thing to you. If you feel like you can take that backlash and that it's worth it for you, that if you got that out there and people were looking and going, look at her, she's writing about this and nobody else is doing this, and that like pride that you feel sometimes can just drown out all those really negative, shitty voices. And it's really, that's your call. And unfortunately, we can't, or there's not, it's hard to work out how to kind of silence the gaming community in that way. People do DM you and people do message you, and everyone has an opinion, but it's the way you deal with that personally and whether you think that it's going to be worth it. And I personally find that sometimes it's worth it, like the pride that you feel having done something that maybe other people don't want to, and that risk just to do something that you think's right is sometimes so much more worth it. And if in doubt, get them out of your DMs.
I would encourage you to write whatever you want to write, because I want to read things by different voices. 'Cause I don't need to read another opinion from middle-class white guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't. I want to read new things. But it's easy for me to say that because I'm like a white bloke. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's fine for me. But I would encourage you to write what you're comfortable writing, and pitch it to who you're comfortable pitching it to. If you don't want to do it in your own publication, if you wanted to do it via a bigger publication, such as VG247, then, you know, I would encourage you to do that.
Yeah, from my own experience, I've written 2 articles which have really kind of caused me to get some flack online. It's been really fun. Yeah, I wrote one on ArenaNet and more recently a Team Fortress 2 Steam toxicity story. And it was really hard and it was terrifying as well to put that out because I knew that I would get the backlash. And they're probably both articles I'm most proud of out of everything I've written so far. And importantly, the people whose opinions you value will give you support, and you've got to stand by your work. And if you know it's good, you'll get good feedback from people in the industry and people you value. And a lot of other people online were very supportive of it. It's normally a very vocal minority, but it just sounds bigger than it is. And it does have an impact. So if you're willing to do it, the Steam piece I wrote, I was saying that a lot of developers feel and community members feel that Steam moderation isn't good enough. And then earlier this week, Steam's changing its moderation policies and community boards. So I don't know if that had any influence, but it's definitely bringing it to light. And there is a possibility things can change from it. But yeah, it's totally understandable that it's terrifying going up against that. But I would say it's worth it for me.
Okay, I'm afraid we don't have time for any more questions. We need, in fact, to get out so the rare guys can come in and set up. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for our panel.